Steph is lovingly doing some technological stuff. It's really cool that last night, he grabbed a bunch of photographs and, hey, man, I'll do whatever. And was up late doing that. And then we're trying to do some technical stuff here. Before we get, what I want to do is quickly go through the photographs, because the photographs have 1,000 words. This is a prayer time, but Pastor Pete, Dad, allowed me, I asked him a couple weeks ago, I said, Dad, hey, I'm thinking about going back. Could you give one of your Wednesday nights we can pray for the guys? He went, yeah. He said, some of the folks are asking, what did you do? How did it go? There's a lot of questions. And I have to be honest with you folks, just straight up, I still got a lot of questions about how the Lord protected, preserved. There's a lot of amazing things that we'll have to let historians figure out. But I do want to go over some of those at the very end. And Seth and I are working on this together. At the very end, there'll be a list of guys from my old unit. Every one of them need prayer. And I'm not talking about hangnail kind of prayers. Prayer for spiritual needs, sanity. On my last trip, it took me 2.5 days to get a guy out who had been shell-shocked. In other words, he had seen too much, done too much, wasn't all there necessarily. And so went on 3 different train rides with him. All of them were over 12 hours. I had him right next to me. It was a wonderful time. Ironically, he later accepted Christ. He wants to come back to Tennessee to get baptized at some point. Anyway, but while Seth is working on this, I want to go over the spiritual stuff first, and then we'll get into the military stuff, or at least what's going on over there and how that plays into it. Someone asked me the other day, so what are some takeaways from fighting in Europe? And obviously there's a lot of takeaways, but I want to go over a couple of the big ones right now. Number one, in Psalm 34, verse 18, it says, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted. Later on in the verse, it talks about being shattered. I remember as a kid watching documentaries with my dad, the old black and white documentaries of World War II. I remember watching with my dad, and I specifically remember asking myself, well, where's God in all this? I mean, how could this be happening to civilians? How could this be, where's God in all this? And I would just like to tell y'all, from an extraordinarily personal level, he is right in the middle. He's right in the middle. He's in the hole with the guys that are trying to survive and trying to keep as many mags near them and as much ammo as you can. He's with the children that are getting shot. He, I'm sure at times, is answering the prayers of the Russian soldiers as well. Some of whom, many of whom don't even want to be there themselves. And I had interactions, honestly, with situations where some of the Russian soldiers were making good decisions and letting some men go that had been shot multiple times, even though officers were tortured. But the Lord is near to the brokenhearted. I had an interaction hundreds of times with people that have been underneath buildings for a month and needed help, and the Lord just amazing in amazing ways. That's a whole nother thing. But Psalm 34:18. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted. The Lord is doing his work in the hearts of not only his people, but also in the hearts of unbelievers as well. You watch news too much, you would actually think that the politicians think they're in charge. So Psalm 34:18 makes that real clear. Hey, you can see y'all. So that's the first one real quickly. Jeremiah 17:9 and 10. This is the second takeaway that I got. And you're not going to hear this in any church anywhere in Tennessee tonight. I guarantee you that. I can't guarantee you, but probably. But here, my second takeaway from that situation in Europe, first being more important than this one, the first being that the Lord is right there in the middle, encouraging and comforting, and giving sanity and helping people die. And the Lord is good. The second one is this, Jeremiah 17, verse 9. And that is, the heart is desperately wicked. Who can know it? In other words, it's a deep well. And when you're not walking with God, when you're doing your own thing, and you're scared and hungry, and you feel like you can do anything, you will do potentially incommunicable, inexpressibly evil things. I wouldn't talk about some of the stuff I had to deal with. I wouldn't talk about that in a bunch of guys, much less in a mixed company group. But the only reason why that's important for me to express that, because I wouldn't be honest with my experience there if I didn't say that when people are left to their own doing whatever they want to do, they can do very, very bad things. And they need the Lord's grace or a bullet, or both. Jeremiah 17:9 is true, even though the world never wants to communicate about it. You know, the world is of the grand opinion that everybody's a wonderful flower, and you can't wait to be right all the time. Anyway, the third takeaway is God's kingdom, the spiritual kingdom, is flourishing like a flower because the Lord is really good at getting truth out in the middle of great difficulty. I'll just give you one example of this. We're in a terrible situation in Kharkiv, and got a bunch of photographs which show some of that. And I kept this with me all the time. These are all a bunch of my guys' photographs, but here's verses that I kept with me. The Lord thy God, in the midst of thee is mighty. Through God you shall be valiant, for it is he that's tread down your enemies. You guys know my dad, so you can figure I'd have to have my own bullets with me. And Mom wrote out a bunch of these, and I had fellow soldiers beg me for these. And I would periodically send out stuff to the guys, and guys would come back. They still do. Hey, chap, Maverick, hey man, send me some more, send me some more, send me some more. I had guys say, hey man, my grandmother used to say these verses. Where's that from? Is that in the Bible? Yeah, it is. It's over here, man. That happened over and over again. My commander, who was not a believer, there was only 3 believers in the Holy Union. One night, all the officers were drunk. I was the only officer in the base that wasn't drunk. There were reasons why they were getting drunk. And he walked into my room. So you want to go get drunk? I said, yeah. He said, you going to come with us? I said, no. I'm the only officer that's sober, number one. There's Russians within a clique of us. And I don't trust the ass-off soldiers that are in the same base we are. And later that night, Odin walked up to me and said, man, I don't believe in all this Valhalla cuss word. But I've really been thinking about Christ. And so the last takeaway is in the middle of great difficulty, the kingdom, what Christ is doing in the hearts of men and women, works. It is incredibly attractive. So those are the 3 takeaways. Now we're here for prayer. And so, like I said at the end, there'll be a list, and I'd like to, if you would just take one of the guys on the list and pray for them. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can get my phone number before you leave and ask me about the dude. I'll tell you what he's doing. I'll tell you what he's going through. I can tell you where he's at or whatever's going on. Because I'm in constant communication with my old unit. Half of them are still there. Half of them, some of them went to intelligence, which in the military world is an oxymoron. And then some of them went to training, which is, we don't have ammo to train with. So we are still training young men at age 16 to 19 to 21. These are guys that have never loaded a weapon. Period. 7 months ago, you still can't have a weapon in Ukraine, supposedly. So, I mean, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on there. Why don't we get into that? Seth,
There is going to be no photos.
Okay, that's fine. Well, that's fine. Here's what we'll do. I wanna just go over a couple of the photographs and try to kind of give a little bit of what we're doing. Keith, if you would walk around and put these somewhere on the tables, and anything that's inappropriate here, make sure we don't put on the tables. A couple of my military photographs got in there with some of my guys. Bottom line is, this is what an early morning looks like before you go on patrol. That's just a bunch of guys. We've already been told there's a Ukrainian lieutenant or somebody that's in every SF unit. And they get command and control from the generals that may or may not even know what's going on. There's very little intelligence because we have zero air superiority. We have massive air inferiority. I don't know if y'all remember about a month ago, those two Bama boys that got caught, the two SF guys that got captured. There was 9 SF units outside of Kharkiv. We were the Spartans, we were one of those 9. We were in the southeast of Kharkiv, and those guys in the northeast probably never met. They were going out and getting intelligence to get as much information as they can to know where we can strike with our weaponry and if there's any weaknesses that we can get an end around. I'm only sharing some of the military stuff just to kind of let you know what's going on. The Russians come through and they'll target anything and everything. One of the first guys that died that I knew, he was a gunner on an ambulance. And he caught shrapnel to the chest and face, and it cost him his life. He caught AK-47 rounds to his chest and face. That was in an ambulance. He's a gunner on an ambulance. Any of the faces, the dark faces, those are people that passed away. A lot of the black and whites it was in Kiev, the first fight that we were in. Fought for 36 consecutive days. Most nights we would go to sleep. I would sleep in a fetal position with a mattress over me and a mattress in the window. It was interesting. Instead of going through all the photographs, I also want to express that in a situation like that, well, first of all, the last week in February, the Russian soldiers started coming west. Took out a whole bunch of the Donbass. Within 2 weeks, they were at the edge of Kiev. Those first 2 weeks that I was there, I helped 2 orphanages out, get a bunch of stuff to them. Several Christians had helped me with finances. Some of the believers that are right here in this fellowship, we were able to help some of those orphanages. One of those orphanages, in order to get them from where they were in Lutsk to where they needed to be, they walked for 17 hours with the kids, straight. Now, that ain't no big deal with Joel, but some fat boy like me, that'd be a big deal. It was a lot of walking, especially with kids. One orphanage had 70-something kids, and they just got whatever they could, and they started walking for 17 hours to get them to a place where they could get a ride to go to Poland. Here, she was waiting the place. Thank you. So then there was a decision to make. I'd already talked to a guy in Alabama, in Hoover, Alabama, whether or not they needed chaplains in the Ukrainian army. There was 170 chaplains at that point in Ukraine, and he said 80% of them were Greek Orthodox. It was like 25 Protestant Christian chaplains. Less than 50 Protestant chaplains were in helping at all with the Ukrainian army. So, and I'd gotten permission to join the Ukrainian army in Kiev, which that particular day you couldn't go to Kiev because it was almost surrounded by the Russians. The train station got hit, so there was no train to interact. Train's the only way to go anywhere in Ukraine. I had a really cool dude, an Indian dude, that worked at an airline and got mad at me. He wanted me to quickly come home. because I was missing a ticket the first trip. And I explained to him, and he said, just tell me where you're at, I'll get you a ride. I said, sounds great. I told him where I was. He went, that's in a war zone. I said, yes, sir, it is. The only ride out of here will be on a Russian MiG. So they did delay that ticket, thankfully. I had to make a decision that night. I decided not to call. I was in a hostel that night, second week of March. And I made this, I prayed about it. I thought to myself, should I call my brother? Should I call my dad? Should I call Keith, Joel, Ben, some of my cousins? I said, nah, I don't want to put it on them in case I buy it. So the next day I got on a train and left. There was like 1,700 people going on the westbound train. And I think there was like 25 carriages of that train. I think there was like 45 people going east. Out of those 45 guys, 10 of us stayed together fighting for months. How I ended up with my unit, only the Lord can tell you. There's all kinds of stories how God did all kinds of stuff with that. But bottom line is, by the time when the Battle of Kiev was hot and heavy, and they brought a semi-truck in the middle of Kiev, right next to where we were, and they put out 17,000 AK-47s with multiple mags. And anybody that could walk would come and get it, because we were supposed to get overrun within the next 2 weeks. And so they wanted people to at least be able to kill as many Russians as they can when they were going door to door. That's the same time that I picked up a missile fragment right outside our base. I've got photographs of where I would hide. This one's M19, and it looks like something out of Auschwitz. By the way, I went to Krakow 4 different times and never got to go to Auschwitz. I want to. I know it's a terrible, horrible place, but from a historical standpoint. But that's one of the places that you would go to when you were getting missile struck, when the buildings were getting hit. There was air raid sirens about every 2 hours for about 2 months. I got to where I just slept through them, or they would wake me up in the morning, and then I would just try to all kinds of stuff in that regard. People have asked me several times, why would you go? Do you have a death wish? Are you crazy? No comments, Keith or Joel. My own ex-wife, Lori, asked me this last week, Josh, what are you doing? I don't want you. Come on, what are you doing? It was a meaningful conversation. But the point is this. If any one of you were there, and you had an opportunity to encourage someone who had been staying in their basement for 2 months. I don't know anyone there who doesn't have family members that are dead. When you're there, regardless of what you're living without, the opportunities to encourage and to uplift and to hug and to just put a hand on the shoulder and say, I love you, the Lord loves you, we may die, but it's going to be okay. That opportunity is priceless. The verse that says, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold, in a picture frame of silver. A word fitly spoken. That's a wonderful verse. It's inspired by Solomon. I would say this, in a battle zone, where there's civilians all around, and you're a soldier and you can both fight and minister, those words are like baseball diamonds. I'll give one quick story and then we'll be done. I can go on, I go all night. Preacher's kid, but we'll try to keep this. Battle of Kiev, hardly ever saw kids for 3 or 4 weeks. All kinds of stuff happened. The last week when I left, and we had won the Battle of Kiev, and I was still hungry for salvations and more spiritual awakenings from my guys. But when I left Kiev, I knew that the Lord had honored the idea of doing something for him. And I'd already made okay with not making it back. That happened a number of times. In one small intelligence mission, we were getting intelligence for 3 days in a snowstorm to try to take out a bridge that goes to Chernobyl. And I got caught in a situation that was extremely dangerous. Stood out in the snow for an hour and a half. And one of my guys wanted me to do something I couldn't do because if I give up information, some of our guys get killed in the operation, which later was done by another SS unit. That particular bridge was taken out in an operation called Operation Tiger. And being a part of that was very significant. But we were in harm's way, and I remember the Holy Spirit's presence. Still cold, by the way. It was freezing. We'd already walked like 4 miles in the, who cares? Yeah, nothing physical, very helpful. But I remember his presence going, hey man, I got you. Whether I take you home or not, I got you. And Ronan, who was with me, one of my guys, he looked at me and I went, be quiet. Can't give up information, no way. And there's so many situations that required the Lord's unique presence of comfort. I've told some of you this situation, but I want to tell everybody real quickly. I was going by a building and a lady came out, her name was Jenny, and she had been underground for over 40 days. She had major lacerations, her face had not seen the sun. There was no running water, so it was very difficult to be near that person from the smell and stuff. And I ran up to her, and I could tell she was dazed. Long story short, I had a hard time communicating with her. But I told her I'm going to come back tomorrow at 12 with an interpreter. I hated to do it, but she needed to go back to where she was just until tomorrow. And I had the Lord help me bring an interpreter. And I'll bring all the money I've got, which some of you here had given me the money that I did that for. It was that money that a couple here that gave me, that I ended up giving almost all the money I had in order for her. Long story short, the next day she wasn't there.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my goodness. A week goes by. Another bunch of missions happened, a bunch of other stuff. Butcha happened. We didn't talk for a day and a half after Butcha. You're welcome to look up Butcha if you want. I don't recommend it. Unmentionable atrocities. At one time, our unit went in and we got 12 people out. We were having fire. 12 people that we were able to get out. And we didn't kill enough Russians. You can never kill enough Russians. I know that sounds, that the chaplain shouldn't say that, but I'm just telling you from a military standpoint. But anyway, long story short, a week goes by, a bunch of other stuff happened. I had failed in a couple of things. I couldn't get some stuff done, which is incredibly difficult to do over there. I couldn't get anything done. I had failed in a couple different things, and I literally was walking down the road like, Lord, please let me get something done or shoot somebody or something. And I looked up and Jenny was over there. I ran up to her, literally, I ran up to her and said, Jenny, she said, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, don't worry about it. I've got the NGO in line. We got to get you to this train station. To get you over to Warsaw, so we can get you to, I think it was Madrid, Spain, was where her group was going. Her family had left her, basically. Didn't know she was alive. And I had that wad of money, and so I gave her the whole wad. I don't know how much it was. I'm not real good with math, except it's real good to give away other people's money, because so many people give to me. I'm like, But here's the real deal. Here's the amazing thing. A dude walked around I had never seen him on my left. Dude walks around to my right and said, oh, can I help in the situation? I said, well, yeah, man. Well, he said, well, I'm a medical thing, and he showed me his badge. And he said, I also speak Ukrainian. Wow. Here's the situation. And they communicated in Ukrainian. What it's going to take to do this, I'm going to get you to the train station. Take all you can take is a bag, and a bunch of stuff. And then the dude looked at her and said, I want you to know, you can trust this guy. You can trust him. Now, you don't know big math. They don't even let you before. Just because I got a uniform on, I got some loser soldiers in my unit. What are you talking about? And I didn't say that, of course, but was thankful he's doing this interpretation and all that stuff. Gave her the money. Now, before I asked her, can I put my hand on your shoulder? And she said no. This time I asked her again. said, can I put my hand on your shoulder? Or whatever? She said, I did. And when I got up and praying, that dude was gone. And I'm like, what is going on? But thanks. Thanks. I mean, English guys that speak like American showing up out in the middle of nowhere, and he was kind of fat, which is not common in Kiev at the moment because there's hardly any food. I don't make no sense. So there can be chubby Indians. The reality is God miraculously intervened in that situation. I just want to share that with you. Just over and over and over again. Bibles, we didn't have Bibles. I went to a church service one time. I only ever go to church service twice. That was even remotely Protestants. And they had concrete turrets they had made around the church with cocktails or wine bottles ready to go. So if the Russians started coming, if we heard anything, the guys would run out and man that. Meanwhile, we're back singing hymns. Isn't that cool? Amazing. Okay, I think we're done with that. But here's the last thing I want to share. I want to close this up. And then did I take, oh, I didn't do that. Seth, you're probably going to have to call out my unit guys, make sure I don't forget anything.
Oh.
Because since I don't think I printed that on the photographs. You know what I'm talking about. Somebody asked me directly, why in the world would you do that? I said, well, it's because I'm a chaplain. That's what chaplains do. They help things. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I fed the Greenbrier High School football team this afternoon. It doesn't matter where we're at. It doesn't matter if we're at school. It doesn't matter if we're, watching football games, Titan Stadium. We're followers of Christ. We get an opportunity to share. We can do it. But I will tell you this. Loco was on my heart almost the whole time. That's my granddaughter, who, by the way, yesterday got her 18th month checkup. And last week, they were able to take her off one of her heart medicines. And she's doing extraordinarily well. She's still in the 4th percentile, being teeny tiny, but she's taller now. So the doctor's all fired up. So that's little bitty Loca. And then this is Liza. She was in Kharkiv when I was there. A little girl, 4 years old, with Down syndrome. And Kharkiv is where we fought for a long time. It's where Slim got hit, a bunch of things happened, and Kharkiv is a very difficult situation. And now all we can do is go back and forth with old M777s and just big old boom, 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 all back and forth. There's no real contact there now. But just a couple weeks ago, I think it's been 3 weeks ago now, the Russians came through and bombed a bunch of stuff, bombed an apartment building, bombed Liza, killed her instantly, blew off a bunch of stuff on our mother. Her mother's still critical care. But I never forget the fact that the Lord is in complete control of whatever's going on, even though it seems like not going to happen. Like, for instance, when I fell out of that tree, and when I went through a horrible divorce, and all kinds of stuff that was just extraordinarily painful. The Lord is in control. And even when you're having a hard time walking, a hard time whatever, this is the day that the Lord has made. We can rejoice and be glad in it because of Him. So here's what I like to do, close up. It's already 7:34, so I told Dad I'd only go 25 minutes. That's pretty good. Cool. Okay, I've got some guys here. So I'll just point Bjorn, B-J-O-R-N, Cabby. Somebody can get Cabby. Somebody get this ugly guy named Maverick. That's me. C-A-B-I. Maverick was my call sign because of my dad. Mom always called Dad back in the 60s. Pete, you're such a Maverick. So that's why. At 6 o'clock roll call in Kiev, they asked me what my, I'm taller than Tom Cruise, so it's no big difference. Doc is another one. Doc. Somebody grab Doc. Dutch. I'm an Army soldier, Calf Scout. Did 3 tours. By the way, anybody over there is not an active duty status for the American military. You can't be over there. These are all old guys, retreads. Uh, uh, No pay. No pay. Very few medical lines. No air support. It's really exciting. Command and control is terrible. It's just amazing over there. Another one, Giggles. Definitely an unbeliever. I'm going to pay for somebody's soul at Giggles. Jabroni. Jabroni. Keller. Keller. A former member of the French Legion. Good fighter. Odin, my commander, Odin. He's the one that said he is considering Christ. Who's been fighting off and on in Ukraine since 2014. He's a legend in the Ukrainian army. He's got over 15 confirmed kills as a sniper. Rodi, R-O-D-I, I'm to pray for. Rooster, another American ex-military. Ragnar, R-A-G-N-A-R, former Ranger. Stifler, S-T-I-F-L-E-R, who knows that? He's from South Africa, sniper, did 2 tours in Africa, and then now with us, with the Spartans. Shrek, Thor, T-H-O-R, Torque, T-O-R-Q-U-E, a 53-year-old American that's also got Ukrainian citizenship. He's an airline pilot in Ukraine. And that first week in February when the Russians pulled through, they pulled through Kharkiv and they bombed his apartment building and took out the entire apartment building. Thankfully, Sasha was not there, and his wife. He could have left that week. Instead, sent his wife and young son to Madrid. And he came straight to Kiev and started fighting. Been fighting ever since. Has a massive injury. Had to have surgery 3 weeks ago. And I stayed in his place in Kharkiv. And we were using his apartment. People get shot. At one point, we had 5 guys in his apartment, using it as a MASH 4077. West is another one, and the last one's a guy named Viking. V-I-K-I-N. So pick any of those guys and pray. If you want any information on them, you're welcome to text me. I'll tell you whatever I can. Ronan, I didn't mention Ronan. Ronan's a Christian. Viking is a Christian. I accepted Christ in 78, so I'm a Christian. I'm trying to think. Torque is a Christian. T-O-R-Q-U-E. And I think Ragnar is, I'm not sure. Caddy accepted Christ, C-A-V-I. The rest of them, I'm not sure. But they communicate with me every day through Signal, which can't be tracked by the Russians. Okay, so I know we're fixing to break up and pray. We'll probably pray where we're at. Are there any other prayer requests, from the church that anybody wants to mention? I have one that's not related to the Ukraine situation. Anybody got anything?
Maybe Elliot.
My grandson will be born in 3 weeks. He has a major birth defect. We'll have to do surgery and put parts back with lung that came through for young. And so
So when we'll just,
his name's
he hasn't had a name yet. So
Elliot.
Elliot. Okay, Elliot.
We have Russell.
Along those same lines, we're also praying for Steve's grandson as well, Luke. Dr. McCauley, you can raise your hand.
Oh, I'm just going to say that the offering plate by the door to give a love offering to Josh, so he'll have another wad of money for the next year.
I got the ticket. I'll talk about. I forgot. I'm supposed to tell you what I'm going back. I'll do that real quick in a second. Peugeot. I had the privilege of going to Haiti 3 times last year in the middle of that earthquake and all that stuff. And Peugeot is the head of security at that orphanage that I help at a lot. Haven't been able to go back. The Agape to the Nations is a nonprofit, and we were helping out there. They were scared that I would go back. They didn't want anybody to go back to Agape in Haiti because they thought it was dangerous. Ironically enough, they did let me go to Europe and fight, so that was kind of interesting. But I'm joking. It's kids, it's one person. Long story short, Pujo was either kidnapped or killed last night. We found out this morning. And so we are desperately looking for him right now. Pujar is his name. Great guy, bubbly fella. Keeps 2 cell phones on him all the time. And our school bus driver takes all the 60 orphan kids to school every day. In fact, Jean-Pierre Mousselet is a director there, who loves the Lord. He tried to get to the orphanage today, and protesters were all around him. If you want to, Haiti is in a very different situation. So we guard the orphanages with shades.
So this is
Yes, that's what I'm referring to right now is Haiti. So anyway, any other prayer requests? Then I'll close up with what I'm doing.
Play for my family.
That's no, just kidding. Any other prayer requests? And by the way, I mean, we're in a group setting. I know there's probably a lot of prayer requests that we have. Not all you can share in a group setting. I get it. By the way, since y'all love me, you love my boys. Eli's Cap Scout in the Army. He's working for a demo company and doing really well. He was willing to speak to the Greenboro High School football team tonight about the Lord. Didn't have to do it, but he was at Camp Shelby last weekend and doing well. Evan's out on the West Coast. He's a kayak safety instructor. And, incredibly dangerous stuff. Saved a person's life 2 weeks ago. Drove him out, put him on his kayak, got him inside. Administered first aid, saved their life. You know, Evan. And he's still happy-go-lucky with lots of curly hair. And girls really like him for no reason. Okay. I think what else? Oh, why am I going back? The Spartan unit. That's the patch. The Spartan unit disassembled. It's a totally different war now. The SF units can't get behind enemy lines. We can't sneak around and take out T-72 tanks. I meant to bring that tonight. I have a big old metal plate that we took off a Russian tank from the 5th Armored Divisions. And I said, I'm taking that with me so I can take it home and put it on my cab. But we got a bunch of winter jackets. If anybody wants some Russian winter jackets I stole from the tank, they're welcome to it. I bought those tonight. Anyway, so but why am I going back if I'm not going to be part of that unit? Well, went to Indiana a couple weeks ago. The Slavic Baptist Mission has 50 churches over there. Now, the last week in February, they pulled out all their missionaries. Dr. Rick Arrowwood's a good friend of mine. He knew of my dad, and he went to Tennessee Temple, knows a bunch of Bob Jones guys. He's a good guy. He wishes he hadn't kind of pulled everybody out, but he did. So, long story short, we developed quite a relationship, and I funneled some money to some stuff he needed and did some stuff over there for him. And one of the churches that I spoke at was a church in that Slavic Baptist Mission group. So last 2 weeks ago, I went and spoke, put my uniform on. I would have done that. They asked me to. It's a French uniform. I was the last one to get a uniform, though. I mean, it was just in boxes. People just donated. And I told them, I don't need a uniform. I just want a gun and my Bible. I don't care about you. I'll just go East Nashville, blue jeans and a t-shirt. He said, get a uniform. And that was the last one in it. I've been making fun of the French military my whole life, and so it's the Lord's joke. I had to wear a French uniform the whole time. We did have one French guy in our unit, Leon, who lasted a week, got shot in his right arm, got paranoid for a week, and I kicked him out of the unit. So that's my French joke for the night. But anyway, back to the point. That Slavic Baptist Mission has raised $400,000, and they're funneling $35,000 every month into a refugee camp. They took over a Christian camp. There's 150 people at this refugee camp. People that are desperate, destitute, coming from the east, from bombed out houses. They're staying there. But instead of just sitting around, they're making a food distribution place. And as of the last 2.5 months, they put out 800 tons of food. Tons, 2,000 pounds. I had to look it up. Volkswagen Bug's 1,800 pounds. So 850 as of the last 2 weeks have gone out another 50 tons. Lines are about a half mile, takes about 30 minutes to get in. Listen, I was there at the end of last winter. We were hurting on food. It's amazing that the Ukrainians would be hungry, the third largest bread basket, because of what Vladimir Putin's doing. This winter is going to inexpressibly difficult for some of the people. Ukrainians are a small, very poor country. Kiev is the biggest city in the country. Their professional teachers make 6,000 hryvnias a month. That's $204 American dollars a month. It doesn't matter how much money you got no food. So we're using that refugee camp as a distribution center. It doesn't have a roof, it needs a roof. A group of guys from Switzerland, another group from Sweden are coming over, and my job is to make sure they get her done. I'm gonna channel my dad as a chaplain, Glenn Harris is I'm gonna walk up to him, thank you for what little you got done, we gotta get it done now. We gotta get it on, and I'm helping them with security, and they asked a bunch of guys at this group, this is what we're doing, and of course, no one volunteered. I was like, yeah, I love Ukraine, I'll go. So that's what I'm doing. I was gonna go on the 11th, I bumped it a week, because I'm weak. No, I bumped it a week because I want to see my son before I go again. You know what they say, third time's a charm, so third time, with the Lord's help.
What city is that near?
Lutsk, which is good. It's a lot safer than it's not on the Eastern Front. We're good. So you can pray for me half as much. The truth of the matter is I'm probably going to still, a bunch of my guys that need some stuff. Last time I went, I brought 250 pounds of military gear from Fort Campbell. And this time I'm bringing some stuff, but I'm also bringing a teddy bear for one of the ladies at the refugee camp. It's in Ukrainian colors. I got that in yesterday. I probably will end up going to Kiev at least once to see some of my guys are going to come in and we'll meet and I'll pray with them, cry with them and stuff and see what they're doing. But my prayer is that I don't have to go back to Harkin. That's the honest truth. Prayer is that I am battle worn. I am dealing with a little bit of PTSD is the honest truth. Doesn't make any difference. The needs are there, we're going to get her done. Anything else? Okay. Well, we'll just do it in the table. It's 7, I went a little long, I'm sorry, 7:45. I don't know, where do we go here today, 8:05 or something? Whatever, yeah, it's been a while. So we just want to do it by tables. Y'all just pray by tables. And let's see, who wants to join me up? Come on me over here and let's pray. Let me lead us in a prayer and y'all pray. Father, I thank you so much for this church. I thank you for what you're doing here. I thank you, Lord, that you go before us and make the crooked places straight. I thank you, Lord, we don't have to stay in, continually dwell on either our past mistakes, the mistakes about the Ukrainian army, the mistakes of our own country, the mistakes in this church, or whatever. We are thankful for your grace that we get to marinate in and to just enjoy throughout our lives. Our need for you is greater than our understanding of that need. So I pray, Lord, that you would, everyone here, to relish and enjoy your grace. So as we take this time, Lord, and focus on some of the men in my unit, for which just thrills my soul. And I pray, Lord, you would do your will, if that means any of my men graduate. But I pray, Lord, that they would, because of the prayers tonight, that the Holy Spirit would do however he wants to do. They would get a fresh look at the Savior because of my prayers. In Christ's name.